Hello there. The attack on Israel by Hamas-led Palestinian terrorists has shown just how alive and well antisemitism is within the ranks of the Labour Party and the wider left. Labour and the left would have you believe that their anti-Semitic elements have been cast out into the wilderness. But you just have to scratch the surface and it's still all there. Yes, still trying to break through to become mainstream. Even after the horrific events of the weekend thus far. Events that have led the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to say that his country is now at war, and it will be a long war. Yet the Labour Party conference has many anti-Israel facets to it. Presumably they think that that's progressive and inclusive. And let us not forget the SNP's Humza Useless Yousaf, who refuses to call out the actions of Hamas as terrorism. Why would that be, Mr. Yousaf? And we've already seen Palestinian activists applauding the actions of Hamas over the weekend at a Labour Party conference fringe event. And one of the speakers said she was honoured to be speaking during such an historic event. And the Palestine Solidarity Campaign has a stall in the conference with happy, smiley people behind the desk handing out leaflets and taking donations, etc. And now we learn of a future event at the Labour Party conference where a Palestinian diplomat, Hussam Zomlot, is scheduled to stand alongside Labour Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lamy at the Labour Friends of Palestine's annual Palestine reception event. And Zomlot told CNN that Israel lies all the time, commits war crimes, as well as, and what is more tragic or equally tragic is the blindness and the deafness of the world and the international community for so many years of the warnings we have been saying that this was coming. Israel knew that this was coming their way. It's a consequence. From what I understand, Israel was caught napping and was totally unaware of what was coming. Not only that, after the UK Foreign Secretary James cleverly X'd, the UK supports Israel's right to self-defence. We completely condemn those terrorist acts against Israel. And Zomlot retorted by saying that such language from the UK government and other international actors will only escalate the situation. Statements about Israel's right to self-defence will only be interpreted by the most fanatical Israeli government as a green light to commit further massacres against the occupied people of Palestine. So Zomlot will not have been happy with Cleverly's later statement on X that Hamas are not fighters, Hamas are not militants, Hamas are terrorists. There is no other word to describe the brutality of firing rockets or terrorist attacks targeting civilians. Now, David Lamy has put out on X that he unequivocally condemns the attacks by Hamas and that Labour stands in solidarity with Israel. Whilst, as I said, Labour is hosting a stall at the conference pushing solidarity for Palestine. So will Lamy still meet with Zomlot and fate him? Now there have been calls from various quarters, including from the Tory Friends of Israel, for the Labour Party to put a stop to these activities by Palestine supporters. But unlike Lawrence Fox, I somehow doubt that the Palestine activists' actions will be deemed to be criminal incitements. Now this is the bit that should really worry us all. The UK Home Secretary Suella Braverman said that whenever Israel is attacked, Islamists and other racists use Israeli defensive measures as a pretext to stir up hatred against British Jews. Yesterday she spoke with CST, the charity helping UK Jews with security and anti-Semitism, to ensure the government is doing everything necessary for the protection of the Jewish communities. There must be zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or glorification of terrorism on the streets of Britain, she said. I expect the police to use the full force of the law against displays of support for Hamas, other proscribed terrorist groups, or attempts to intimidate British Jews. So here we have politicians joining in. We can't even keep it out of the conference of a mainstream political party. And isn't it illegal to stop that sort of thing now, given the protections certain groups enjoy? Multiculturalism at its finest. And because of our politicians' desire to be progressive and inclusive, all we've done is import and facilitate potential unrest in this country. But as that risk grows, all we get from the establishment blob is claims that the far right is the biggest danger to us all, followed by more actions to shut down any debate by the ordinary UK citizen on matters such as these. It seems it's easier to quell the vast majority of Brits than it is to deal with a minority, so far, of potential troublemakers and members of certain proscribed political bodies. And every year the numbers of those with opposing views coming into the country climbs. And every year more and more Brits get swept up in this rather heated debate, including the two main political parties. One party accuses the other of anti-Semitism and the other is accused of Islamophobia. But it's no good trying to sort this growing divide out by targeting Labour and Conservative Party members or the general public, because that is not where the problem lies. But that is where the proxy battle for control is taking place. And each side has a list of grievances and a set statement that the whole country must adhere to in order to recognise their respective side. And those statements are the definitions of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia that they want us to use. Definitions that the rest of us do not have the protection of. In the UK we have equality laws and the like, but even these are being squeezed to incorporate all sorts of protected characteristics. Characteristics that do not protect the majority. Maybe we need to have white privilege incorporated as a protected characteristic. After all, we are told it is inescapably within all people of the UK majority ethnicity. And all of this just creates more divides and more potential unrest, with the danger that more and more people get dragged into it until a tipping point is reached. I'm reminded of a joke from the times of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, when a new kid arrived in a Northern Ireland school, and the other school children asked her if she was a Protestant or a Catholic, to which she answered, "Neither, I'm a Hindu." To which the other children answered, "Yes, but are you a Protestant Hindu or a Catholic Hindu?" The conflict and division that we are increasingly importing every year with little intention of encouraging proper assimilation is corrosive to our society. But there seems to be no end to this Tory government incentivised friction-inducing import. And don't think Labour will be any different. They will be worse. Right now we have one group of people within our country openly celebrating the deaths of their enemies, yes, enemies, in a foreign land. We must stop this before we end up with one group of activists celebrating the deaths of their enemies here on our streets. We must stop importing conflict.